Hello everybody, welcome to the I Am IT YouTube channel. My name is Shazdan, as ever, I am the IT Geek. We are halfway through the series now. Looking, we're in topic 7 now, so I've covered a lot of ground. And hopefully you are gaining a lot from the sort of theoretical and demo sort of methodology we're using for this series. And we've used it for previous series, and normally the feedback's been great. We've been talking about in the topic 7, we started off by talking about privileged access and the enterprise model. So we're going to continue in that theme and talk more about privileged identity management. So let's get started with this episode. So this is the SE100 Microsoft Cybersecurity Architect exam. We're in topic 7, part 2 now. So this is a 3-part topic we're going to be covering. In today's episode, we're going to talk about designing identity governance solutions, and we're going to talk about designing a solution for securing administration of cloud tenants. And we'll do a little bit around PIM and how you can manage privileged identity management in Microsoft Entra in the demo. Let's talk about designing identity governance solution. So it says Azure AD there, but it's now called Microsoft Entra, which is it's still called PIM, which is privileged identity management. Some of the key features that it can give you is essentially it provides time-based and approval-based role activation. And what it's going to do is it's going to mitigate any risk of sort of misuse access permissions. And people having access to those privileged accounts at times when they don't need it. And it allows you to audit and monitor who's elevating their permissions and at what times of the day they're doing it to access what services as well. Some of those key features include that just-in-time or JIT access that we mentioned. And that's essentially time-bound access to resources, and it has a start and end date and time as well, and you can dictate that and you can do access reviews around that as well. Again, requiring approval as well is a good feature to activate those privileged roles. Making sure that your top level administrators are getting a view of, or sometimes even your team leaders and managers are getting a view of when you are asking for that approval. But having to use MFA before when you elevate PIM as well, a very key important feature. We can also configure alerts when users are or admins are elevating their privileges, so you can have a group of people, maybe team leaders again, that are getting alerts to just to monitor who is elevating privileges and at what times of the day and what days as well. And as I said, you can conduct those sort of access reviews, and we're going to have a quick look at those in the demos over and look at PIM. So again, I said we'll look at it in the demo as well, but around access reviews, again, these are very, very important when we're talking about privileged access management or privileged identity management in this case. There's a few sort of scenarios where sort of access reviews are going to be useful. The first one is, you've got too many users in sort of privileged roles. So it's a good idea to check how many users have administrative access, how many of them have global admins, and if there are any sort of invited guests or partners that haven't been removed from being sort of assigned to those administrative tasks. You can, sort of recertify the role assignment users in your Entra ID roles, such as sort of global administrators or sort of Azure resource roles, such as user access administrator in sort of Microsoft Entra PIM experience. Another scenario is when sort of automation is not possible. So, you can create rules for sort of dynamic membership on security groups or N365 groups. But what if the sort of HR data isn't in Entra, or if users still need access after sort of leaving a group to train their sort of replacement? You can create a review on the group to ensure those who still need access can do. And the final sort of scenario is maybe when a group is used for sort of a new purpose. If you have a group that's going to be synced to Entra from Active Directory, or if you plan to enable the application sort of Salesforce, for example, for everyone in that sales team group, it'd be useful to ask the group owner to review the group membership before the group is being used for maybe some sort of different risk content as well. So different sorts of scenarios where we can use access rules. It's going to essentially make us more efficient as well in that sort of management of those privileged access requests. So let's now talk about best practices when it comes to managing privileged access and privileged access roles. And best practice is essentially to manage, control, and monitor access to privileged accounts. You can turn on things like Entra ID privileged identity management, and after you turn on, or PIM, after you turn PIM on, you can then receive notifications via email for privileged access role changes. Again, these notifications are going to provide early sort of warning when other users are added to highly privileged roles within your sort of Entra directory. And again, a good best practice there is ensure all critical admins, again, accounts are sort of managed in Entra. Remove any sort of consumer accounts from sort of critical admin roles. An example is, Microsoft accounts like hotmail.com or live.com or outlook.com. Another best practice is to ensure all critical admin roles have sort of separate accounts for administrative tasks to avoid phishing and other attacks that are going to maybe compromise administrative privileges. And here what we can do is we can create separate admin accounts that are assigned these privileges that need to perform those administrative tasks. Block the use of administrative accounts for daily productivity tools like Entra or arbitrary web browsing and things like that. Another sort of best practice is to I try and identify and categorize accounts that are highly privileged roles, that have highly privileged roles assigned to them. How can we do this? We can turn on Entra sort of PIM as we mentioned, and we can view users who are, who have that global admin or sort of privileged administrative role and other high privileged roles, and we can remove any accounts that no longer need those roles, and we can categorize the remaining ones that are assigned the admin roles as well. A lot of good things we can do, a lot of different things we can do there to improve and follow those best practices. And the final one is kind of, implement, there's another best practice, implement just in time or JIT access to further lower the exposure of time of privileges and increase your visibility sort of into the use of those privileged accounts. And again, PIM in Entra has that capability to do that just in time access. So just to summarize some key takeaways there, we need to make sure we develop those sort of four-stage sort of roadmap to secure privileged access against cyber attackers. Complete those critical items to do right now within the next 24, 48 hours. Perform critical tasks that are fast and easy to implement. Mitigate frequently used sort of attack techniques. You can focus on mitigating the most frequently used attack techniques for sort of credential theft and abuse. And in the next 1 to 3 months, you can use PIM and Entra admin roles to sort of manage, control, and monitor access to those resources. Then, within the next 6 months and beyond, you can review administrative roles in Entra and users who have those sort of admin roles in Entra, join devices again, and validate sort of incident response plans as well. So there's a lot of things we can do in sort of a stage, do some things now in the next couple of days, in the next couple of weeks, next couple of months, and then a longer term, 6 months plus, to sort of mitigate any sort of identity attacks. So with access reviews and sort of PIM comes entitlement management as well. And again, this is another Entra governance feature. And this is going to allow you to automate the access request workflows as well, the access assignments, constant review, and also it's going to have an expiration date on the sort of entitlement management as well, those requests. So again, after a certain amount of time, regardless of whether you reviewed it or not, it has to be reviewed. The user, you have to make a decision on whether that user can continue to have their access to those services and applications, or whether or not they need to be revoked. So we also have Purview Privileged Access Management as well. So this is a feature within Microsoft Purview, so it's outside of Entra, but this is going to protect you from sort of breaches that use sort of existing privileged admin accounts that may have access to sort of sensitive data or maybe critical configuration settings. And it needs you to, it needs the users to request just-in-time access again, so access to services for a certain amount of time. And they need to complete that sort of elevated privilege task through a more highly scoped and time-bound approval workflow. So again, users can't just elevate permissions when they need to. It needs to have a workflow around how much time they're going to be on it, and it needs to be authorized by either a team leader or manager or something as well. What this is going to give you is granular access control over those privileged accounts and those privileged admin tasks within Microsoft 365. And what's called just enough access is also going to allow you to perform these tasks at hand as well. And what it doesn't, it doesn't risk that sort of exposure to that sensitive data, and it kind of protects that sensitive data from another level as well. Let's move on to the next topic within this session now, or within this video, called Designing Solution for Securing Administrative Tenants, Cloud Tenants. So here we're talking specifically about sort of Azure tenant management, and specifically Azure Lighthouse. So Azure Lighthouse includes multiple ways to help streamline sort of engagement and management. We have something called Azure Delegated Resource Management, and this is going to manage your customers' Azure resources, or allow you to manage them, your customers' resources securely, um, from within your own tenant, without having to sort of switch context or control planes. Customer subscriptions and resource groups can be sort of delegated to specified users and roles in that sort of management tenant, with the ability to remove access as and when you need to. And it's going to have like a bit of a new Azure experience, a portal experience as well. So you can view cross-tenant information in the sort of My Customers page in Azure portal, and a corresponding service providers page lets customers view and manage their sort of service provider access as well. When it comes to ARM templates as well, you can use ARM templates to onboard delegated customer resources and perform sort of cross-tenant management tasks. And finally, when it comes to managed service offerings in the Azure Marketplace as well, you can offer your services to customers through sort of private or public offerings, and automatically onboard them into sort of Azure Lighthouse. So it's a bit of an overview of that Microsoft 365 tenant from a management perspective. And your Microsoft 365 tenant is kind of dedicated. It's dedicated for those SaaS services within Microsoft 365. And it's where sort of your organization's data is stored within a sort of specific default location. You can set that in the portal as well. Again, that's all going to depend on what location you want your data to reside in. You might have regulatory compliance or regulatory requirements, GDPR reasons. There'll be some sort of regulatory compliance or compliance reason that you need to store your data in a certain country. And you can you create it when you sort of purchase one or more products from Microsoft, such as E5 or E3, sort of a set of licenses. You tenant also includes sort of what's now called Entra, Microsoft Entra ID tenant, what used to be as your Active Directory tenant as well. And this is the sort of high-level architecture of your tenant. Um, there's certain elements to it that we can see in the diagram. So you have the sort of correct set of product subscriptions and licenses, the set of sort of products that match your business, IT, and security needs. And there's an adequate number of licenses as well for your sort of workers and anticipated changes in staff. From a networking perspective, you have configured the most correct DNS domain names. Make sure your default domain's in there. Mine is imitgeek.com. For enterprise networks, you have to optimize network traffic to sort of the Microsoft network for on-site workers as well. And you have optimized network traffic for sort of your remote workers who are using maybe VPN. And then we're talking from an identity perspective as well. You've synchronized your Active Directory domain services accounts, groups, and other objects with Entra. For this is Microsoft Entra ID. And user accounts have been assigned the correct licenses from the correctly purchased products, such as M365 E3 or E5, for example. And also within this architecture, you've configured strong identity and access management. We've been talking about some of that already. Require secure sign-in for sort of passwordless or MFA. Conditional access policies, which we've done already in a separate topic, which are going to enforce sign-in requirements and restrictions on those higher levels, for those high levels of security. Also, make sure your on-premises sort of Office servers have that, and their data have been sort of migrated to cloud apps or even being used in sort of a hybrid configuration. And as well with the device management as well, with Intune or sort of maybe basic mobile and security built into M365. And that means your organization's own devices are enrolled and managed correctly, and the apps are apps for sort of personal devices are also managed. So that's kind of an architecture of your 365 tenant there, what we can see in this diagram specifically. And then again, we can look at managing tenants within Lighthouse, as I mentioned. So we have Microsoft 365 Lighthouse. So for MSPs with sort of delegated access, Lighthouse simplifies onboarding of customer tenants by recommending security configuration baselines tailored to small, medium businesses, of customers, and providing sort of multi-tenant views across all customers' environments. With Lighthouse, service engineers can scale the management of their customers, focus on what's important, and quickly find and investigate risks and take actions to get customers to a sort of healthy, secure state. Lighthouse also provides capabilities for sort of account managers, with AI-driven insights. Lighthouse can deliver proactive, actionable, and personalized recommendations, which is going to help acquire new sort of customers, improve customer retention, and sort of expand businesses sort of premium offers. Microsoft 365 Lighthouse is going to let you manage customer tenants accounts by selecting tenants in the sort of left hand side of a navigation pane to open the tenants page. The tenants page then contains like a list of all your sort of all your customer tenants. You can select the tenant view to sort of with detailed information, including details of sort of deployment status. The tenant page also includes the multiple options, including sort of export, where you can select to export tenant data to Excel or CSV if you want. Manage tags, so you can select to add, edit, or delete any tags. You can assign tags as well, or you can do a search for maybe keywords. So that's the kind of how Lighthouse looks with M365. And that is again a bit of a longer topic, a bit of a more theory to talk about. Obviously, quite an important topic is Lighthouse and privileged identity management. So now we're going to take a look at some more kind of security around the sort of privileged access now. So let's jump back into the demo portal. Welcome back. We are in the Entra portal again, and we're actually going to be looking at. I want to do a bit of an overview of the identity governance because that's what this kind of topic 7 kind of focuses on. I just want to finish off with. I'll show you just an example of like creating a sort of a privilege, like sort of a tiered account. And how you can create, it's creating a standard user account, but there's a difference in the naming convention you might be able to use, for example. Let's just quick look at the identity governance area of Entra, and this we're going to be looking at a lot of this. We're going to be looking at PIM, access reviews and stuff like that in this series, in other demos. But essentially, identity governance is where you can sort of manage identity and access right across that all your applications and your services. It's going to allow you to meet any sort of regulatory compliance requirements. So the first one is on the dashboard. You can see, look at your identity landscape. Tells you how many user accounts there are, how many guest users, how many privileged roles, how many groups and teams, how many applications. And it says we've got insufficient access to the lifecycle workflows, so we need to kind of look at that potentially. How many access reviews are configured? So a lot of useful information. At the bottom here you have sort of the tutorials. But if we go to entitlement management, this is where we can sort of configure, can manage sort of our digital identity securely. Can control sort of the sort of user lifecycle, both externally and internally, and that includes looking at access packages, creating those access packages, looking at sort of catalogs as well. As you can see, we've got some catalogs here, then sort of how many resources they include. You can have catalogs of different things like marketing or different departments or different projects as well. And then there's also the lifecycle workflows as well. So these are quite nifty. Or if I had access. That's strange. Why do I not have access to that? Oh well, must be I think I need the license. Yeah, that's right. You need to have a license for some of the identity governance stuff, which is a bit naughty on Microsoft part. So for the lifecycle workflows, you need a separate license. So just make sure you remember that. But then we have sort of the access reviews. Again, we're going to be looking a bit more further into this in a later demo that you can configure, and as well we have this sort of privileged identity management as well. We're going to be looking at configuring those roles. I just want to go back to identity and users here. So here we have I have my break glass account there. We have a lot of users. We have standard user accounts, and the difference between your standard user accounts and your tiering accounts is that, again, you've got different, especially with that enterprise model, you've got different tiers of access. So like, your tier 0 applications, or your tier 0 access is going to be for like Active Directory, or your on Entra access. Whereas then you're going to have like sort of another tier, like tier 1 for maybe server access. So potentially as an IT admin, you could have 3 or 4 accounts depending on the sort of tasks that you do. Example you could is going to be sort of shabs dot spell tier 1 admin. So that I know is going to be my tier 1 admin account, right? So it's about creating different admin accounts and different tiers, having and then again, I wouldn't necessarily use this to log into my normal collaboration device, my device I'm going to use with email. You have what's called privileged access workstations or secure access workstations. And again, they can be cloud or they can be physical devices. But the point is, you need to access your sort of, especially your highly sensitive services and administration and management areas with different privileged accounts. And again, you use things like the identity governance, like entitlement management, access reviews, PIM. your lifecycle workflows. Use these sort of things to manage access of those privileged accounts. So again, even though you've got a level of access where users are or admins are using separate accounts for separate sort of tiers, but also they are elevating their permissions every time they need to access something. You can keep an audit of that and get those approved or rejected. So yeah, I just wanted to show a little bit around the identity governance. We're going to be going into more detail about that. I just wanted to show an example of sort of creating and what we mean by creating a tiered account and how you'd access that and from sort of which type of device. So a bit of a low level sort of demo there. Again, the element of this exam, the whole point is it's a design, it's an architectural exam. So there are no real practical elements of it. You're not actually, you need to know about the architecture and to help make your decisions. That's why I'm trying to show you things around what a tiered account is, what the different services are. We'll do some deep dives into the PIM and access requests, access reviews in other demos. But hopefully it's helping. If it isn't, by all means, let me know. Make sure you do leave a comment in my videos, make sure you like my videos, and make sure you are subscribed. Got lots of useful URLs in the description, including the Measure Up sort of practice exam, which is discounted at the moment. Measure Up are sort of official exam partners for Microsoft exams, as well as the Microsoft Learn location for sort of the SE 100 topics, so you can do a bit more free learning. Free is always good. And finally, there's also a repository for the GitHub sort of case studies. I won't call them labs because they're not case studies. I do recommend you read through those to get a better understanding as well. So thank you very much for watching. Until next time, goodbye.